And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
All right, attention to roll call. What's up, everybody? Happy Memorial Day. Obviously Memorial Day, we're honoring the people that gave their lives overseas or maybe even here to keep us free, to give us free platforms. So we honor their sacrifice. We also honor the people who came home, but really maybe they never really came home from battle and they lost their lives here through suicide. So honor those people as well on Memorial Day. So for all yous that served and or you had families that lost people or people you served alongside of, we honor their sacrifice. We also honor yours as well. But yeah, Memorial Day is about celebrating the brave men and women who gave their lives to ensure that we have these freedoms where we could criticize and talk about things. So happy Memorial Day. Hope everybody's having a great and safe Memorial Day.
Yes. Good morning, guys. Good morning, chat. Shout out to all the veterans who served, and we're thankful for your service. The phrase "freedom is never free" is one that we repeat a lot, but it's a good day to remember that as the sun is out today in New York City, and it looks like it's going to be a clear day. So, when you're out there enjoying the weather and enjoying your family get-togethers, whatever you may have today, just say a prayer out there for those guys who are out there, serving the country and who've served in the past, and those who never made it home. So again, thank you guys who served, and thank you to all the veterans out there.
Yeah, all right. So let's get into it. Unfortunately, we had an NYPD officer. Some say he's off duty. We said that he was on duty, coming home from work on his in uniform. Why was he coming home in uniform? He was coming home in uniform because there's something in the NYPD called portal-to-portal overtime, meaning you have a direct report directly to your detail. So the NYPD is not going to get you there. They're not going to use any of their thousands upon thousands of vehicles to ensure that you get there safely, to ensure that you're properly dressed and secured. They're going to say, hey, you know what? Just fumble around, get all your equipment, either bring it home with you that night or, bring it home with you the night prior to that detail, drive straight to that detail. Then when you report for work the next day, report back to work in uniform. Before we even get into the incident where the officer gets robbed and is stripped of his firearm, has a knife put to his neck, is beaten with a pipe and kicked and stomped. What do you think about portal-to-portal overtime?
Yeah. I think it's like a Band-Aid approach to the problem of the vehicle situation. And it's you want cops to be as prepared as they can when they get to work, and to be able to not have to fumble around and fumble around with their equipment and fumble around with preparation. And when you have guys unable to get vehicles and having to get there to precincts that aren't normally their home, and they already don't have lockers, and they don't have a place to settle down and get prepared for their tour. I never think it's good. I think we have to keep cops in the right mind when they're when they're doing these details that, again, they don't have a home, so they're unfamiliar with the location. They now you have them fumbling around and not having that place to get all their stuff ready. So I don't like it. I think about my experience in All Out, and my experience in when I was in Impact. And not having a place to put down your stuff, your gear, and not having like a locker, and not having a vehicle to even get there is an added it's an added burden for cops, when we need to keep them as clear-minded as possible in order to effectively do their job. So I think it's a band-aid. It's a band-aid solution to ongoing issues with the department.
No, I don't like it. I never like doing it. To me, policing's almost everything is routine, right? Like the way I'm not
Yes.
saying that, stops are routine, but the way you're going to go about getting dressed and getting prepared to go out should be the same every day. You should be put in that same mind frame. And the way that I got put into that mind frame was in the locker room. It wasn't making sure, fumbling with my stuff to make sure I have everything, the numerous items that you need to go out on patrol or to go to a detail. It wasn't fumbling around to make sure I bring them to my house or I'm coming home with them. I think you're 100%. You're totally out of whack when you're doing that. It is not normal. You're not in the right frame of mind. You're not in your usual mind state that you are. That you don't have that level of preparedness. You don't have that. Your sensory's off. Like your sensory of your environment's off. Of your equipment's off. Maybe you're bringing stuff home in a bag because you don't want to wear it home. So maybe you have it in a big bag and you're walking. You're not used to having that bag, and you have a 9mm in that bag, a big one, right? And you have your off duty on you. But guess what? You're not really prepared and trained and ready to use either of them. God forbid something happens in a moment notice. To me, I said it time and time again. I don't think any cop anywhere in this country should ever work alone at any time. I know a lot of people do. And I also don't think any cop anywhere in this country should be going home in uniform. I just don't. It's just my opinion on it. I think that it's dangerous. You might not be scared, but you're endangering your family. Whether you think you are or not, I don't think there's really much of an argument. Like, you're endangering your family that day by coming home in uniform. You're raising up your neighborhood, letting everybody know that you're a police officer. And maybe it's not a big deal if you live in where that loser captain, Wantagh. Maybe if you live in Wantagh, it's not a big deal. You go home in uniform, no big deal, right, bro? You're in Wantagh, the mean streets of Wantagh. But when you live in the projects in the Bronx, or you live in the projects in Brooklyn, or you live in the inner city, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's, you don't want to be walking down the block. Most of you wouldn't walk down the block in your uniform by yourself while you are on duty. You're going to walk down the block by yourself when you're off duty in uniform. It's just setting up for disaster. It's lazy policing. It's lazy supervision. And I personally think that cops should not be traveling in their own vehicles or on public transportation to details. I think that there are plenty of vehicles. I don't care what's happening. There are plenty of vehicles to be utilized to usher people back and forth to details. And really, at the end of the day, you're not saving that much money. You're not. With proper supervision, you're not saving that much money. You say, this is what it is. You're going to leave from the precinct. You'll get X amount on travel time, and you cut it off. Yeah, maybe they have to change on their own time and then commute home. Oh, well. I understand some guys like, oh, well, I like the portal because I get to get right home. I don't have to go back to the command and then commute from the command back to my house. I get it. But again, overall benefit of everybody on the job, there are people that have no business walking down that block by themselves, 4 o'clock in the morning at uniform, endangering their family. They don't live in Wantagh.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about in the past about cops like having their head in the game when you're about to hit the streets, and this is something that like, to me, it's like an added distraction for them, instead of, like you said, routine is very important, because it kind of gets away a lot of it kind of puts cops in that frame of mind, that it's, I'm here at work. Well, to me, it did. I'm here at work. If I get to work if I have other stuff in my head, and I have other stuff going on in my life, It's like I get to work, I'm at my locker. It's like it's time to get my game face on and get my uniform on. So to me, it's this is like an added burden that's like that could be a distraction, you know. And the last thing you want to do, especially when we're putting cops in unfamiliar locations, is add an added an added distraction to them, something that can possibly get their head out of game if they're worrying about like their vehicle or just these other little things that kind of like you know again keep their heads out of focus, being focused on what they're supposed to do that day.
Yeah, so a lot of events took place over the weekend. So we get a few messages, more than a few, that cop was robbed off duty, received an eye fracture and a skull fracture. He was robbed of his firearm. He was coming home in uniform from a mobile field force detail. Some people say he was going home from work because he had a mobile field force detail the next day. I don't know. To me, it doesn't matter. Either way, he was going home in uniform. He was coming home from work in uniform. So that's all. Doesn't matter to me. It's irrelevant. He was going home in uniform on detail because of the portal overtime, because they don't want to use vehicles to. They don't want you utilizing department vehicles. They'd rather you in your own car when tints are illegal. So they'd rather you commute in your own car so people could track your license plate number, see your car, see your vehicle, which further endangers you and your family. Because some people need 7 vehicles and numerous details, so you can't even use one, a bunch of you to go to a detail. So that's neither here nor there. So so what was told to me is that the media is not picking this story up. They're refusing to write about it. They're refusing to write about what's happening. Could you please post it? Could you please post? Could you please post? So I stop what I'm doing and I post it. And this is what I posted. I said, according to anonymous law enforcement sources last night, an NYPD off-duty cop, who I say was actually on duty in uniform with a jacket over his uniform, was returning home from mobile field force. Maybe I was right, maybe I wasn't. Maybe the information I had was wrong, maybe it wasn't. Either way, he was returning home from work in uniform. He was still in uniform because the mobile field force detail is now a direct report, meaning you're reporting in from your home in uniform. This is to save on potential overtime, as well as vehicle use. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, with his non-existent police career, doesn't believe cops should first report to their assigned precinct, get changed, and utilize a department vehicle to get to an NYPD detail. Reports are stating the officer, while returning home, was beaten unconscious, robbed of his gun and other personal items in the confines of the 45th precinct last night. According to sources, 2 perpetrators ran up on him, pulled a knife, and physically beat him, leaving him with a fractured eye and a fractured skull. Because the entire upper echelon and their cronies misused tens of millions of taxpayer dollars in improper overtime for their own personal gain, NYPD cops must now travel on public transportation or in their own personal vehicles on overtime, further endangering not only their own life, but their families as well. But yes, let's hear everyone say it. Crime is down. Unless you account for all the crimes the NYPD is no longer taking reports for, the misclassified reports, and the numerous victims who have lost faith in the Adams administration and no longer report crimes. So within hours of myself posting that, the Daily News first dropped an article, then the New York Post dropped an article. And so basically at that point, that's when media picks it up. Why didn't media pick it up originally? That's a great question. You would think that that's a prolific incident that happened that shows you the state of New York City, that cops coming home from work in uniform aren't even safe. And you know what? And just saying that alone is the exact reason that I think that the media isn't picking that up. Why? Because this department, with a particular person at the head, whose family has a lot of money, has a stronghold over the New York media. I mean, and that is very obvious. So once the post starts going viral and there's enragement from not only the rank and file, but the public, guess what? Leaves the media no choice but to say, oh, yeah, you know, I think we're going to write about this now. I think we got to write about this. But let's put a fluff version of what happened.
Yeah, so that question is very interesting, John. Like, why didn't the media pick it up? And my thinking, well, here's what I find curious. The day before, on Friday at 10 a.m., there was a press conference held at it might have been Orchard Beach, because I know Darcel Clark was mentioned to be there. So the press conference was about the city's usage of. It was primarily about the city's usage of drones on the beach now. But during that press conference, Jessica Tisch also talked about her crime strategies for the summertime, and like she mentioned that crime is again down, and that you know, her plans to use these mobile field forces and these basically these condition zones for the summertime. So you think about it for a second. On Friday they were talking about crime is down and they have a plan for the summertime, and then not even 24 hours later, a cop gets robbed, you know, at knife point on the street. A cop who's still wearing his uniform and who told the purpose that he's a cop gets robbed at knife point, and again gets his head stomped on by the perps. So I don't think it's coincidental at all that the job in the city tried to delay this and seemingly tried to hide the fact that that this was in fact a cop that was robbed and critically injured. But it's to me it's this entire incident is a lot of the issues we talk about that are going on with the city are all here in this one particular incident. I mean, you have the city telling you that it's safer, that crime is down. You have a to me, it seems like you have a young cop who seemed like he was a little bit unaware of what was going around him, and that goes back to the lack of veterans in this department to help train these young guys and let them know that, you know, you gotta always have your wits about you, even though it's 4 a.m. You know, there's a saying that midnight cops use, and it's like it says that after 2 a.m. the only two people on the streets are the cops and the perps. You know, so I think that the lack of veteran leadership of veterans in the precincts also hurts these young guys. It gives them there's no older guys to tell them, hey, you know, pay attention when you're leaving and you think you're off duty, which you're not until you get home, really. But then you also have the feckless leadership that we're seeing from One Police Plaza, who are more concerned with perception management and the illusion of safety than actually doing the things they have to. And now you have like union leadership who seem to be going along with the plans, because, you know, the PBA didn't have any sort of mention about this until 1:30 p.m. on Sunday, even though this happened at 4 a.m. on Saturday morning. And you know, and lastly, you have the schizophrenic policy that's coming from the top of 1PP, the policy that kind of, you know, it's like Tish puts these policies in place and then quickly in place, and then gets advised by senior personnel that, hey, this isn't a good idea, and she quickly has to go back and change the policy because she's like, you know, the word I've gotten is that she's overcompensating for being number one, a woman, and feeling that her inexperience as in law enforcement is like nobody respects her. So she's overcompensating for policy. But again, this incident seems to encompass all the issues that we've talked about before.
I personally think it's bigger than that. I think that this is a re-engineering of what's happening in New York City, and it's what you actually coined the phrase. I think this is part of the larger perception management campaign. You could sit there and say crime is down and everything's fine. You could do that until you see incidents where cops are even getting their guns taken. An armed individual just getting his gun taken from him because it's that dangerous, crime's that prolific. And I think for that story to even hit the press really just crushes the crime is down narrative. It just crushes it. So wait, so 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 guys are just running around putting knives to people's necks and beating them with pipes, and you're sitting here and telling me I'm safe in the Bronx? You're sitting here and telling me that this administration is historic? See, I think this all goes down to politics and the election, and politics has just taken over the police department in the last decade. Like that, this is not a actual police department. It's a political arm. It's a campaign to manage perception of voters. That's all it is. And so it was very inconvenient for that to hit the news. And then, so the department they put out a statement then, right? What's their initial statement? Their initial statement is this: wanted for robbery. On May 24th, 2025, at approximately 04:09 a.m., near 1473 St. Peter's Avenue in the Bronx, 2 individuals forced a 27-year-old man to the ground, struck him in the face, and caused multiple fractures. So I read that and I'm like, wow. That tells me everything I need to know about what's happening here. That tells me you could care less about any of the residents in New York City. You could care less about any of the members in the NYPD. You could care less about the truth whatsoever. This is just more of a perception management campaign. That's all it is. This is just, hey, yeah, Eric Adams, great. Everything's historic. The police department's doing great. We're not losing thousands of cops. Everything's fine. Everything's great. The unions are doing their job. And of course, the unions say absolutely nothing, which is disgraceful. Because if you're going to stand up for your members, you're going to, if you had an ounce of hair on your nuts, if you were even like had this much port, even if your balls were this big, to stand up for your members in this situation, your member was a victim of a robbery. We don't know that he'll ever be right again, right? Fractured eye. We don't know the long-lasting effects of this. We don't know the trauma that was caused as a result of this as he's going home, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally. We don't know any of that. So for you to sit there and stand up for your member was expected of you. It's demanded of you. This should be the easiest time for you to stand up. They don't say anything about this post. They actually retweet this post. All the unions, they retweet it. They didn't say a word. I seen it and I'm like, am I living in a fantasy world? Is it me? I mean, maybe I am crazy. Maybe it's me. Maybe there's something seriously wrong with me that the NYPD news, who likes to source this podcast as misinformation, or the NYPD leadership who like to source this podcast as misinformation, but are too cowardly to ever come on this platform and tell us exactly where we're wrong or what we're misinformed about or what we're saying that's inaccurate. Right? Those people, they happen to just put out this post very intentionally, by the way, because it wasn't just this tweet. It went out throughout all of social media. It went out as a press release. A 27-year-old man, conveniently leaving out the fact that he's a member of the service. Conveniently leaving out the fact that he was in uniform at the time. So I retweeted that. I said, why are you intentionally leaving out the fact that the 27-year-old man was an NYPD police officer who was returning home from work? Question mark. Your perception management campaign is not only pathetic, it is also insulting to the rank and file of the NYPD as well as the citizens of New York City. Marlon, why did they leave that out? And is that important? And is this something that the unions could have pushed back on?
Yeah, yeah. Something else to think about is yesterday Eric Adams made a comment about George Floyd because yesterday I believe was the 25th and the anniversary of his death. So again, there's a lot of it's very strange to me. I was very busy on Saturday, so I didn't catch much of this until late, and I kept thinking to myself, well, there's got to be a press conference, right? The PBA would have had a press conference at this cop's hospital, right? And no, there was no press conference. In fact, again, the statement from the PBA came out at 1:36 p.m. on Sunday. So we've had like a almost a day and a half and before the PBA actually responds, makes a comment about it. I would have thought that something as serious as that would have elicited a very like a fiery public comment from the union much sooner than it did. And the DEA was the only one that had a statement the night before. So the question goes back to again why was the response from the city so late, and why did the other issue I noticed is that the PBA's like you noted, the PBA statements seem to be canned itself. All the responses seem to be like if you know like if they to me it seems like if those statements had to be like passed down from headquarters or city hall or it was short and it didn't go into details and there was no there was no sort of you know it seemed to be emotionless, and I think it goes back to what they did on Friday and how much of an embarrassment it would be for Tish and for Eric Adams to to have this cop be injured the day after, and even after they were saying that crime is down. And I think because this NYPD is so politicized right now that they took it upon themselves to work on their strategy, their public relations strategy, and how they would what statement they would make in the public before they actually allowed the unions to comment about it. And I think it's kind of shameful that we've gotten to this point where just a cop being injured is now a political it's got to be part of the political strategy and the public relations strategy of the city and the NYPD. But as we've talked about months ago, this should be expected as we head into election season because Eric Adams' whole platform is a security-minded centrist Democrat. And what happens to his platform if you don't have security? What has he accomplished in the city if now a cop is getting robbed? A cop wearing a uniform is now getting robbed. Where's that platform? What have you done for security in the city if that's happening now? So I think that's exactly why we're seeing the kind of response that we've seen so far from them.
Yeah, Chief Lukash explains portal to portal. It's paid at a lower rate. It's allotted 45 minutes in borough, an hour and 15 out of borough. If it takes longer, you don't get compensated, meaning 45 minutes each way. 45 minutes to the detail if it's in your borough, if you work in the Bronx, and you go into a detail in the Bronx, you get 45 minutes both ways, right? If you're out of the borough, you're in Staten Island, you got to report to the Bronx, you get an hour and 15 minutes both ways. You hit traffic, too bad. It's over. Can't get changed, can't do any of that, So that's why that's why the portal to portal he's saying is it's a money saver. But so we just came out with this whole new social media policy, right? The department shuts down all these social media accounts, right? Because really for the actions of two people, Kaz Daughtry and John Schell, it had nothing to do with the ceremonial unit. It had nothing to do with any of the other accounts. It really didn't. None of the precinct accounts. I didn't see any. I saw a couple of dumb posts. Like I'm not gonna lie, but they weren't unprofessional. They were just stupid. Like you know what I mean. They weren't done with ill will. It wasn't like the Shell and the Daughtry, who still have their, they still had theirs. The chief of patrol still has it. I don't even think there's a deputy commissioner of operations anymore. But If there is, they'll still have their Twitter. But again, the rank and file are blamed for the failures of the appointed management, right? They're blamed for it when it comes to overtime. They're blamed for it when it comes to childish behavior online. But yet, so we have this new policy in place, right? So all of these social media posts should be on point, right? Now, so I retweet that. About 20 minutes later, guess what happens? Boop. This post is unavailable. Why is that post unavailable? Because the NYPD pulled the post down. They pulled the post down. So it's like, well, you're redoing stuff, supposedly, but what are you really doing? You know, what are you really doing? So then they redo it. Here's what they redo it to. Wanted for robbery and assault on 5/24/25 at 4:09 a.m. near 1473 St. Peter's Avenue in the Bronx. 2 individuals viciously attacked an off-duty NYPD officer. Now, here's my question. Is he off-duty? You're on 45 minutes travel time. If you got out of work at 4 o'clock, let's say, and it's 4:09, or you got out of work at 3:45, is he technically off-duty? Maybe he did sign out. Maybe he's done. Maybe he really was going home from his shift that evening and he's off duty. Is he really off duty? He's in uniform. If you travel into a detail and you're on portal to portal, are you off duty or are you on duty? I say you're on duty. I say he was on duty. I say this is a line of duty injury. 2 individuals viciously attacked an off-duty NYPD officer. They forced him to the ground, struck him in the face, held the knife to his throat, stole his belongings, including his firearm. So they weren't going to originally tell anybody this. They didn't want it to hit the media at first off, so no one to know about it. Then they tweet a tweet like it's just a random crime. It's not a big deal. Things happen at 4 o'clock in the morning. Then they retweet it, and they put, after getting called out, they put what actually happened. What are you thinking with all this, Marlon, now?
You know, I found it interesting that I last night I found that video also, and like today, like, you know, before the show, like I couldn't find a video anymore, like as if they also took that other video off of Twitter. But it's crazy that they're doing this, you know, that like, did they actually think they were going to go through the weekend and just not talk about this at all? We were going to get to Monday and you're not going to mention that a cop was robbed and injured. It's politics. So has it gotten to the point where you know, now we're openly showing that cops don't, you know, that politics, it goes above you know, the police officers on the street. And to me this is like a kind of unprecedented to me, that, you know, that we're going this far. I'd always thought that politics played a part in a lot of the decision making behind the scenes, but to actually see it kind of in front of us right now, and something that like you know, it was obviously the political response and the public response to this incident obviously played a part into why they withheld the information. But to see it so obvious is like kind of unprecedented to me, you know. And I just wonder, as we get deeper into the summer, and traditionally in New York, for those of you who don't live in New York, traditionally when we get to the summertime, the violence tends to spike, as you know, more people are outside, more people are hanging out. There tends to be like parties and block parties and just more people gathering, and you tend to have a spike in like violence in New York City. So as we head into those summer months and these incidents start to spike as they traditionally do, are we going to see more politics playing a role into the information that we get, and you know, and just policy in general. So,
what do you think about traveling on portal to portal? Are you on duty or are you off duty?
yeah. Well, you're on duty, of course. Yeah, you're absolutely. I believe you're absolutely on duty.
Is this something that the union should be pushing for right at this moment in time? That this was actually a line of duty injury?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, think of it before. Like when you had a court notice, the department never wanted you to use your own vehicle to get to court because I believe the thinking was that if you get into an accident, the city is going to be liable for that accident because you're on duty. So, here it's okay to do that when the city. It seems to me like it's okay for the city to do it when it's convenient for them, and so the union should definitely be pushing this as pushing for this.
But they're very focused on filling their own coffers, their own pockets. So, and we're going to show you that later. We're going to talk about the return of no-show jobs under the Eric Adams administration. It's like, a no-show job, something that used to happen when the mafia ran New York City is, they get your cousin, you'd go work for a union, you'd be, they'd give you some job you never went to and you got a paycheck. And, I think basically that's basically what's happening right now with the PBA while they're getting pension sweetener deals while they're still on that they'll directly benefit from. So when you're asking yourself about, who's going to benefit from that 25 and that 30 year and that pension sweetener, who's going to do that? Who's trying to stay on this job until they're 65? Oh, wait, there's people that are still assigned in the NYPD that I had no idea were there. There's people that are still on the payroll. Wow. Oh, and they were in the union. Oh, and one of them was the president of the PBA and the other one was the vice president of the PBA. Oh, wow. And they're still on the job. And sometimes they may even come in and do some overtime. Wow, I didn't know. And guess what? We're getting all these pension sweeteners for them. So they're very busy, Marlon. So we can't fault them and say, like, where are they? Because they're around for themselves, obviously. So here's the video. I don't think I'm going to play this till the end. But here's the video. Here's what's happening. You're going to see the police officer approach from the right side of the screen. And I just want you to see how quick this happens. All right. So here's the police officer right here. I'm going to stop it right here. He's walking. You can see he has his patrol pants on. He has an overcoat over him. Right. And this is how quick this happens. You ready? Here it is. Two males. Boom. One hits him. Look, they hit him to the ground. Another guy puts a knife directly to his neck. Right there. They run in his pockets. And this is where they're finding everything. Right? Apparently, he was on the phone at this time. So, listen, I don't want to Monday morning quarterback anybody. This is, you see how fast it was. You see how fast it happened. I just need to say this. If you're on New York City streets and there are two males approaching you fast with masks on, get distance from them immediately. Cross the street, move behind the car, do whatever you have to do. Do not walk towards them. I don't care if you're with your family. I don't care if you're with your elderly mother. Move to the side immediately and get out. If they start following you, pull your gun out on them and draw down on them. If they charge you, shoot them. This is, do you see how fast this is? And this could have, I'm not saying it could have been totally avoided, but what I'm saying is this cop's very lucky to be alive. And I'm not knocking him at all. We all make mistakes. We all get caught slacking. This could have been me. This could have been any one of us. I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just saying here it is. Here's the video. Let's learn from it. I'm not beating up this cop at all. Let's just learn from this and make sure this never happens again. Everything I know in life, it's because I messed up at one point and I learned. And I'm like, I'm never doing that again. And again, this is how vigilant you need to be. It's a split second. Here we go. He's coming. He's walking. Here it is. So, all right. 11-second. We're at the 11-second mark. By the 14-second mark, He's already on the floor with a knife to his neck. 3 seconds. It took 3 seconds because they were right there. They take his firearm and they leave. Thankfully, they didn't kill him. Thankfully, they just ran away. I'm not going to play it to the end, but before they ran away, the one that was rummaging through his pockets chucks his phone, it appears to me. I'm not sure that he did that. But they took his wallet, they took his gun, and then he stomps him in his face.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal. You know? Now, admittedly, I was a little harsh on Twitter, because again, I still I can never understand a cop getting robbed. Yes, I know they jumped him and this happened quickly. But again, I was a midnight cop, and at a certain point, the only two people on the streets are the perps and the cops. Okay. And if you're walking at 4 a.m. in the morning and there are two guys approaching you, like John said, wearing masks, you have to get your wits about you, and you have to first look. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna Monday morning quarterback him too much as well, but I think young guys need to get in the game a little bit more. I've spoken to young rookies on the street, and sometimes they kind of dismiss what you have to say, and like I think the job has to prepare these young guys a little bit better to like get their head in the game. You're not off duty until you get home, guys. If you're walking home at 4 a.m. in the morning, you shouldn't be on the phone. You should be paying attention to your surroundings. You should still have your head in the game until you're at home, and you're lying down in your bed and getting ready to sleep, because you're not off duty yet. And the fact that this kid is alive is you got to thank God, because those perps could have easily used his firearm on him, especially after finding out that he is in fact a cop. And the issue is that if you're being robbed, you may not be getting robbed at gunpoint, but it's still a gunpoint robbery, because now they have your firearm, or they have the opportunity to get your firearm, and they could easily use that firearm on you. So you really have to be paying attention here. And the other thing I mentioned is, if you're walking at night, late at night, don't walk on the sidewalk like that. And the sidewalk, especially if it's not a well lit sidewalk, walk in the street. You have a greater a viewpoint of what's around you, and you'll have areas that you can get behind, or maybe you have a wider street, where a wider area where you could run around, and get yourself in a tactical advantage, as opposed to walking on a narrow sidewalk where it's easy to get cornered against the wall, or against a vehicle or whatever by these two perps. But yeah, I think I think you young guys out there, you gotta get your head in the game. You're not off duty until you get home. Just pay attention to your surroundings until you're able to safely arrive to your residence alive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like becoming a cop, like I always said, I was a street kid. I grew up in the street, like hanging out, playing everywhere. I dated girls all over New York City. So I was around. The 90s was a different time than the 2000s. You know what I mean? Like you would get your ass handed to you and get robbed if you weren't paying attention to what the hell was happening. You weren't walking around with jewelry. We didn't have cell phones then, but like you really weren't walking around too flashy. You were very aware of your surroundings. And I think the newer generation really grew up in a safe New York, so they don't understand like what New York was. And now we're going back to that time where robberies are prevalent, where robbery crews are prevalent, where people are just going to walk around, beat people up. That's the rise in the hate crimes. Like, no, it's just groups like, remember the wilding, what happened in Central Park? Like that was a thing. Like that just used to happen because you should just go around, beat people up.
Or slash them.
slap
big thing in the
them,
90s.
rob people for that hat, not even because they wanted your hat, just to do it.
Mhm.
It was a different time. So things have changed. But the reality for me of hypervigilance came when I became a cop and they gave me a firearm. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to carry this gun with me all the time. Be armed at all times while in the confines of New York City, right? Be armed at all times. Says it in the Police Roll Guide. Be armed at all times while in the confines of unless you're convalescent sick or alcohol is likely involved. But you're never allowed to be intoxicated unless you're convalescent sick, right? Or in a place you can't properly secure it, a beach or a park or something like that, right? You're doing an activity, you can't properly secure it. But other than that, be armed at all times. And that to me was like the scariest thing because I'm like, they say they taught us early in the academy that like every job you go to is a gun job. Why? Because there's a gun there at every job you go to. Whose gun is it? It's the one that's on your hip. The gun that's on your hip could be the weapon that kills you. You have a grave responsibility when you have that gun on your hip. You have a responsibility for your own life. You have a responsibility to everybody on New York City streets that nobody takes that gun from you. Because if they do, more than likely, not only are they going to kill you, they're going to kill other people on that street that day. It's to me, I always tell everyone, my first child was my gun. It was my gun, and it's something it's something I don't know how familiar you guys are with the story of, I don't know your guys' faith or anything, but the night that Jesus is taken, right? The guards come to take Jesus with the Pharisees. Judas comes up, gives Jesus a kiss. And one of the soldiers, the Roman soldiers, comes and he grabs Jesus. And Peter takes a sword out, cuts the guard's ear off, right? And according to scripture, Jesus stops Peter, heals the guard's ear. And that always bothered me. And I thought about that for a long, long time. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why would an apostle have a sword? And then I'm like, why would someone carry a sword in ancient times if they weren't highly trained in the use of that sword? You're going to just put a sword on your hip and walk through this vile land with other trained men with swords? No. Why? Because somebody's going to take that sword off you and they're going to shove it where you don't want it. And it's the same thing with the firearm. Don't ever carry a weapon you're not prepared to use, you won't use, you're not trained to use, you're not proficient in it. Don't ever carry that weapon because that weapon will get you killed. And I don't think that, that story really awakened me into studying scripture because I was like, you know what? I don't think that how the apostles and Jesus were portrayed are actually who they were. I think these were pretty tough men. I think these were pretty scary dudes walking around when the whole world hated them. They were walking around 12 deep and the whole world hated them, the Jews, the Romans, everybody else, and they were preaching. And that led me to think about, would you actually carry a sword in ancient times if you didn't know how to use it? And it's the same thing. Would you actually carry a gun today if you don't know how to use it and you're not prepared to use it?
One other thing I'll just quickly mention about this is the cell phones, guys. Even if you have an earpiece in your ear, I think that's going to take away a little bit of your situational awareness. And I think a lot of these kids today they didn't come of age in the atmosphere in New York post 9/11, because I can tell you before 9/11 I was going to college in Manhattan, and you didn't think about terrorism in the subway, right? post 9/11, there was kind of like an air of paranoia about you, about being in the city at all, and just sitting in the subway train, you became more aware of what was going around you, and this intensified after the Madrid bombings that occurred. So I personally couldn't sit in the subway anymore with earbuds in my ear and listening to music, and that was before I was even a cop. But the thing is, your situational awareness, you were just more raised up about what was going on around you. And I think the kids today they didn't come of age in that kind of paranoia that engulfed the city. So they have kind of like a false sense of security around them, walking around with these earbuds and talking on the phone, and that's a mistake. You have to be. It's a mistake, especially if you're walking around in a dangerous area at late at night, to have any sort of distractions on you that are gonna degrade that situational awareness and prevent you from getting again your head in the game. So just the last piece of advice, guys, get those earbuds out of your ear, just pay attention. Remember, like John said, it's a gun run because you have your firearm on you, and if you get incapacitated with that firearm on you, it may not end well. It's a dangerous situation to be in. So that's the last thing I'll say about it.
No, yeah, I tell people all the time. I see even though I see my neighbors, like my neighborhood here is safe now, but like it still bothers me. Like I see people running with earbuds. I see them on the bike with earbuds. I'm like, what are you doing? You can't hear cars. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Kids must think I'm crazy. I'm like, they're like, what are you worried about? I was like, yeah, anything could happen. Your senses are off. You don't know what's happening. I always tell the kids, I was like, you ever see Stand By Me? That kid that got hit on the train? He had a Walkman in his ear, didn't hear the train. Boom. Right? And the modern Walkman really cuts your senses off. The older Walkman, you could kind of still hear with those fuzzy thing. Now, forget about it. You don't know where you are. You're totally out. Like when I work out, I'm in the gym. I have no earbuds in my ear. I'm not listening to anything. I'm in my own head. Even when I run, same thing. If I do run with anything or I work out or if I'm on my bike, I don't care. You're hearing my music. Like I have something blasting, like you hear it, like it is what it is. Cause I don't want my senses cut off for a lot of different reasons, whether it's vehicles, whether it's, oncoming vehicles, oncoming traffic, something's going on. You never know. And so, yeah, you're 100% right. Now you have a firearm and you're cutting your senses off. What are you, out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? You know how quick that could get taken from you? 3 seconds. We just showed you. 3 seconds. 3 seconds. And so like, and the other thing is like that hypervigilance. Listen, it sucks when you live in New York City or if you live, I don't only want to just say New York City, but especially in New York City. But if you're a cop and you work where you live, the hypervigilance you have to have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is constant. And will that take a toll on you later in life? Yeah, it has with me. It has with a lot of people I know. But you have to have it. That's not just a training to know what store you're entering. You're off duty. You're off duty. You have the stupid cop pants on. Everyone thinks you're a cop or a security guard. Everyone thinks that more than likely you have a gun on you. And you're walking into a deli at 2:00 in the morning. Are you not going to look in that deli first to make sure maybe that's a situation I don't want to go into? Maybe that's not a good situation for me. Like what are you thinking? Like you have to have the right mind frame that you are on duty at all times. Does that catch up to you? Yeah. Will you suffer PTSD later on in life? Yes, you will. But you know what? You will have a later on in life. Pat Donahue says it here. It's 4:15 a.m. You're walking home. You see two guys dressed in all black with masks on approaching. Zero tactical awareness. Not saying the robbery wouldn't have happened, but spidey senses should have been ringing. And again, that brings me to the problem of when we're hiring people who are not ready to do this job. who are not aware of the dangers of what happened in New York City and what can happen in New York City. I mean, this isn't all, no, I'm off duty. I'm off duty. I could just go into this deli and not look and not make sure it's not getting robbed. And maybe, you know how many times I've went places at 2, 3 in the morning and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to get gas here. I'm going to get it somewhere else. Well, you know what? I'm not going to go in that deli. I'll wait till I get to another deli where I'm more familiar with. You have to constantly be thinking in New York City. And my whole point is this is not stuff you should be learning as a New York City cop. This is stuff you should know as a human being, as an adult who lived in New York City, who understands the dynamics of the city. Because this is to me, it's common sense. You're 100% right. When I see those two dudes coming at me, I'm like, oh, they're gonna rob me. 100%. I see them down the block. It's 4:15 a.m. How many people are on the street? It's you and them. That's it. Again, I don't want to sit here and knock anybody, and I'm not perfect and I make mistakes and this could have happened to me, but it's got to be talked about. It's got to be talked about because it's not disrespecting him or disrespecting his family. This is, let's not see something worse happen because we're getting there. We're getting there. Dim used to say it. Dim says it all the time. He says, we're going to see, he goes, unfortunately, we're going to see a cop get killed with someone's hands because they're unprepared. They're not able to defend themselves. And we're going to see that, unfortunately. And we're already there. We've just been lucky. By the grace of God, this kid didn't get killed. By the grace of God.
Yeah, man. This is the importance of having veterans in the precincts to tell these guys, because, evidently it's, as we've talked about on Friday, they're making, the standards are being obviously being lowered to get these guys into the academy and to fill the seats, because New York City has such a high demand, such a need for cops, right? But where's the veteran leadership where's the veterans in the police department to fill the gaps that the training in the academy doesn't do? Because I'll tell you this, like I learned a lot more. I learned a lot more when I was in the street and talking to, just picking the brains of like the senior crime guys and like the veterans in the precinct than I did in the precinct, than I did in the police academy. And if you don't have these older guys in the precinct anymore, then there's no one to fill those gaps. There's no one to tell them, hey, listen, I saw you on patrol and I saw you stop that guy. Maybe you should have did this and do this and this and this. There's no, if the job is, the job already has a problem with the training. And that's always been a big issue in this department, because again, the job needs so many cops, and resources, and allocating those resources probably has always been a big issue, especially when it comes to training. And now on top of that, you don't have senior guys to impart what they've learned to younger guys. So Eric's absolutely right. We're going to see more of these issues go as the city gets even worse. You're going to see more of these issues come up. And I just hope that the few that are remaining there, if you see a young guy doing something that you think is going to put him in a bad position, you let him know, because if you don't let him know, he's going to end up getting hurt like this other officer. And it's not good, hurt or even worse, because like we said, his firearm could have easily been used on him.
Yeah. And and we used to tell guys like that all the time. Like the guy, he gets on the job, he's wearing this medium shirt, the precinct shirt, and you see his gun, and we're like, dude, what are you doing, bro? Everybody knows you're a cop, bro. You're sitting up here, like, what are you doing? Guess what? You walk in the bank's getting robbed, you're dead. You're dead. You're unprepared. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't need to tell everybody you're a police officer. You don't need to have the Punisher sticker with the blue line flag on your car. Never. Like, you don't need any of that stuff. You don't need anything identifying you as a police officer, as a gun owner. You do not need any of that stuff. All of that stuff is a danger to you. You want to wear a t-shirt to work out in, that's fine. You know what I mean? But like, you're walking with your family. Come on, use your brain. Not everyone needs to know you're a cop. You're the biggest target there. Anthony DiMaggio says, only perps are sacrosanct to New York politician. Cops are not valued despite any brief praise occasionally offered in political speeches. And cops, they must remember this. And then Isabella Germano Burns. Perps watching cops park in the street, changing clothes, removing gun belts, portal to portal needs to stop. Give RMPs. It's 100% right. We've seen time and time again where perps have watched cops do that and then break into that car, put their gun belt in the car, and like, shame on the cop for just dropping your gun belt in your trunk and thinking nobody's watching you and not being cognizant of your surroundings. And then, hey, there's a gun in that trunk. I'm going to break into that car. I'm going to get all that stuff. And that's happened numerous times, and because of stuff like this, it to me, it shouldn't even be allowed. You should have to get changed in the locker room. You should have to what other agency in New York City? Could anyone answer me this? Is there another agency in New York City that is going to tell you to go somewhere and report somewhere on a dime, full uniform, anywhere, and you're driving on your own? I don't know of one. I don't know of one.
Yeah. Patrick Donahue in the chats has a great comment. He says, years ago, the department hired candidates who wanted to become cops for the most part. Currently, the department is just hoping to fill seats in the academy. Okay, hold on 1 second, guys. I think I have a truck coming through. Yeah. So, Patrick is absolutely right on that, and I think the state of the economy actually is might also be pushing people to join the police department just for a job, and I think it's incumbent on the department to remind these guys that this is not a job that's like. It's not a game, it's something that you really got to have your head into, because you can easily lose your life. This isn't like an office job or some other regular job. This is something that you really have to have your head in the game. And if you're not prepared to have your head in the game, then you really should find another career choice. And having your head in the game does not, because you're carrying around a firearm, having your head in the game does not only include when you're on duty and on patrol. As you're seeing here, it includes when you're walking on the street and trying to get home. Because again, you have the gun on you. You in this case, the cop is wearing a uniform, and you give off the impression that you're a cop, and you may have something on you that they could certainly use, which is a firearm. So the job needs to prepare these guys better, and if you don't have your head in the game, I think you really should look at a different career choice.
Yeah. So Hoodmay is saying that, well, Daughtry wears the logo and so does Adams. Yeah. And they walk around with the largest security details we've ever had in New York City history. And they're afraid to go home, and they're afraid to walk anywhere, and they're afraid to do anything. Everywhere they go, including on vacation, they have a security detail with them. Kaz Daughtry's in Pennsylvania. He has a security detail with him. Anywhere he is, he has a security detail with him, right? He has constant 24-hour surveillance on himself, right? And I'm not knocking him for it, but like, don't compare them to the regular cop who has absolutely nothing, who has absolutely nothing. They're walking around the streets of New York, traveling on their own, like totally different situation, totally different scenario. That neither they didn't do it as cops, and they weren't going to do it as bosses either. They're not going to walk around showing that logo off without having a heavy presence around them. You see how they move in the streets of New York. That's how they move. That's how they move. So like, it's not even comparable to them. So what happens right here? What happens right is, so the cop's credit card gets used in several bodegas around the Bronx. and the NYPD investigates. NYPD 4-5 detective squad. They're able to, locate who that individual is, and it's the father of Tavon Hargrove, male, black, 23 years old, date of birth 4/24/2002. He's 6 feet tall. So the 45th Precinct Detective Squad is endeavoring to identify, locate, and apprehend the above suspect. On May 24, 2025, at approximately 04:10 hours, the suspect did commit an armed robbery of an off-duty MOS in front of 1472 St. Peter's Avenue, during which time he did remove that member of service's service weapon, Glock 19. Suspect is to be considered armed and dangerous. So they were able, I'm not even going to get into how they were able to do it, but basically there's video everywhere. And so they did a great job in tracking down a video where they were able to make facial recognition of the perpetrator, as well as, get right on those transactions that happened, and were able to locate the suspect who made those transactions. We'll just leave it at that. I find it funny that the detective who has this case is Sean Lisco. Detective Sean Lisco of the NYPD's 45th Precinct Detective Squad. He was somebody I came to know after All Cops Are Woke had threatened the lives of my children and Eric Dim's children, because he came on Instagram and decided he was going to run cover for All Cops Are Woke. He had no problem with it. He was actually telling us that All Cops Are Woke isn't a male police officer. It's not a member of service. It's just a 16-year-old girl from Nebraska who's a security guard that he often interacts with online and enjoys having conversations with. When I asked him why a grown man who's married with children is conversing with a 16-year-old security guard in Nebraska, he didn't know what to say, member of the NYPD. He also let everyone on Instagram know, even though we weren't shy about it, that we had filed an internal affairs complaint against All Cops Are Woke. What I found interesting is, how the hell did he know that? That's what I found interesting. And then he began to try to prosecute the case, and how those actually really weren't threats against our children. So am I happy to see that Sean Lisco is still in the 45th Precinct Detective Squad, which, by the way, covers a restaurant that Sal Greco's favorite restaurant, where the part owner of that restaurant threatened me out of completely nowhere. So I still find it strange, but I hope they do a good job. They've done a good job so far. I hope they do a good job locate not only the perpetrator, but get the member of service's firearm back. So I would say that's the one thing that I've seen that was done right so far. Should the NYPD offer training, not even offer, demand training how members should act off duty? I personally think this calls for an overhaul of NYPD training right here. Anybody with less than 10 years on this job, anyone who came in the Bill de Blasio era, I think they should be required to go to a class. This is completely unacceptable to me. I'm sorry. The more I think about it, it's 4:15 in the morning. There's two masked men. You're the only two people on the street in the Bronx. How do you let them get that close to you?
Yeah, it's infuriating, really. I was angry last time when I saw that video, because it especially, these perps rob the kid, and then before they walk off, the guy turns around and goes back and stomps the guy while he's on the ground. And to me, that I was so infuriated when I saw that. The brazenness of it, the fact that perps are so emboldened now that they feel they could do that is another thing that's like, you just can't believe we've gotten here. But I agree, John. I certainly hope that at roll call today, that certainly supervisors remind these guys that, to be more tactically aware of what's going on around you, even as you're leaving the job. And I mean, this kid was walking in the 4-5 precinct, and that precinct right now is up, like they're almost up in every number So I have to wonder if that was even one of those zones too that the cop was injured in. Because right now I'm looking at them, they're up 13% in the air. So, and they're up a whole 7% in the last 2 years. So I have to wonder if what happened in fact in one of those condition zones that Tish is supposed to be putting that extra manpower in this summer.
That's a great point. That is a great point, Marlon. It was that in one of these zones. I mean, it's possible. It's definitely possible. But I just think, when you watch the lack of reporting, the blatant misinformation that was put out while coming on my post under fake handles saying that it's misinformation and trying to point out where I was wrong by talking about facts that don't matter. I mean, it's honestly, it's disgusting to me. It makes my blood boil. It makes my blood boil that people don't understand the dynamics of New York City. I've seen so many people arguing that they want portal to portal. They like going home and they like reporting direct. They don't want to go to the precinct. It's like, all right. So, but maybe that's good for you, but there's a lot of people it's not good for. Maybe it's not good for that single mother. Maybe it's not good for somebody that lives in the projects. Maybe it's not good for, and I honestly think it's dangerous. I think it's completely dangerous. I think you're unprepared driving in your own vehicle without tints, by the way, because you're not allowed to have tints. Like I said, when I was in New York City, I always had tints on my car. Not because I even like tints. I actually hate them. But I did it for the safety of my family because I'm driving around. I locked up a lot of people. A lot of people know me. And I'm like, I'm not going to get caught out here with my kids in the car, like fixing my kids in the back seat or whatever. And next thing I know, that I'm surrounded, or there's a car cut me off. I was like, it's not happening. So you're not allowed to have tints. There's a huge enforcement against tints, cops having tints on their vehicle. And I personally believe cops that live in New York City, in the confines of New York City, should be exempted from that tint law. All over the country, people have tints. Oh, it's a safety hazard, John. Cops can't see in the car, John. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm in Florida right now, and everybody's got tints out here, and the cops work by themselves. So, I mean, I don't know. It's not how much. Is it a safety hazard? Yeah, I'm sure it's a safety hazard. But you know what? You know what's more of a safety hazard? You can't even relax in your damn car. You can't even have a second in your car to just listen to the radio or listen to a book or listen to a podcast. You have to pay attention to everybody that's pulling up to you at the light, everybody that's behind you in the car, because God knows, maybe IAB has a bug up you because they found out you were a Trump supporter. Oh, wait. It's okay if you're a Trump supporter now. I'm sorry. Eric Adams supports Trump. That's more of a safety hazard to me. That cops can't even get a second to breathe. You don't have a second. You go to the deli with your family, you can't breathe. You go to the park with your family, you can't breathe. You go take a walk on the boardwalk with one of the boardwalks in New York City, you can't breathe. You take a ride in your car, you're hypervigilant the entire time. And nobody talks about that. Honestly, people that live in New York City and are cops, they should get battle pay.
Yeah. I remember we talked about that in a prior episode, and that's it's spot on. The fact that their job is now telling them to do portal to portal, and they don't have tints in the window that could, hide the fact that they're wearing a uniform right now. This is more of those policies that just don't make any sense. Ron, Inspector Layson of the Executive Perspective, makes a great point in the chat. Let me see if I could pull it up again. He says, he asked whether this was, he notes that this was part of it was mentioned in the paper that this was part of a robbery pattern, and he wonders whether the officer that was injured was aware of the fact that it was a robbery pattern when he was assigned for that night. That's a good question, very good question, because as we've talked about also in a prior episode, a lot of these precincts don't do a good job at informing the cops that they have on details of the conditions in the precincts and of like who the players are and what are the main problems, which blocks have issues. And a lot of times, again, this is where the veteran cops come into play. And so now you don't have that. But it's a very good question whether the cop was aware that the 4-5 is been up in has had they're up, their numbers are up, and whether he knew that there was an ongoing pattern of these type of robberies. I mean, perhaps if he was aware of it, he might have been more situationally prepared for what went down. But it's a very good question, and I hope going forward, I hope the department does a better job of doing that. Right. Before, when I was in the FIO's office, one of the things we started doing late, though, just before I got transferred, was going down and talking to the new guys, the rookies, and that's something that I think precinct should do more of. Have the FIO or crime guy or whatever they're calling conditions today, have them come down and let these guys know that, hey, if you're going to be on this block, you got to watch out for these guys. We have a pattern at 2 a.m. or whenever that you guys need to be aware of. Just keep the guys informed so that they'll keep their heads in the game, or you'll do your best to keep their heads in the game as much as you can. But it's a great point that Ron makes.
No, I totally agree. Donald Cannon says anybody can get got. 100%. But you're definitely easily going to get got when you got your head up your ass and you're not paying attention to what's going on. You could eliminate as much as you can the positions that you should be in, So this is the comp stat for 45th precinct. So year to date, overall major crimes up 13.17%. For a 2-year period, crimes up 6.78%. For a 15-year period, crime is up 56%. For a 32-year period, it's down 49%. So to me, I don't even look at, I used to post about the comp stat. I don't even look at it anymore because it's not worth the paper it's printed on. We really don't know what the crime is going on. I mean, we talk about crime in and day out on here and how it's misclassified. So it's intentionally misclassified. It's not like it's a mistake. Like burglaries aren't being made burglaries. I mean, the girl, the Janine Acquafreda that we had on here that's running for Brooklyn Borough President. I mean, guys try to rape her. They try to break into a business and rape her, and there was not even a report taken for attempted burglary. I mean, or even a criminal mischief. Or even just a minor, there was a report taken for nothing. They didn't even take a report. They just left. And that's going on throughout the city. I mean, most notoriously in transit. I hear from cops and sergeants and lieutenants all day that their commanding officers do not want any majors being taken at all. And there are majors happening in every transit district on every tour. So, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous and disgusting that the nation's largest police department's lying to the public in order to prop up a mayor. We cannot properly, effectively fight crime if you're not properly documenting it. It's that simple. You can't properly deploy resources. You don't even need to know the resources you need. And your crime zones are full of shit because they're based on the numbers that you falsified. So everything that's happening is so to me, when I look at the crime stat, I don't even look at it anymore. It's garbage. I don't really know what's happening there. I could tell you where they're fudging a lot of numbers, though. You could kind of see that on the ComStat sheet. But once they stop taking reports for anything, now it's all over the place, and that's what's happening. Is and I read in the paper all the time. I read about robberies in the paper and their criminal mischiefs or their grand larcenies or their petit larcenies, and I'm like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? This was a violent major crime. This was not, and they'll literally tell you that it's classified a totally different way than how it spells out in the paper. So it's sad state of affairs. So I mean, again, I don't know. Was that in the crime zone? Was it in her zone? It could have been. You know what? They were part of a larger robbery pattern. Okay, they're part of a larger robbery pattern. How large is that robbery pattern really? Might be a lot bigger than we know. Might be a lot bigger than we know. Because I'm sure a lot of those reports didn't get taken.
Yeah, stay trained up. I see your comment. I think it's a larger problem. It's a problem. It's a generational problem, I think, and it's been compounded. The fact that these younger guys are their mentality is kind of different from the older generations, and I think that saying we have where soft times create soft men. I believe it's hard times create hard men, and soft times create soft men. And I think when things have been so good in New York up until this point that these prior generations didn't grow up in the New York of the early 90s, of the late 80s, of the even to a little extent the late 90s. So their mentality is a little different, and I think it's been compounded by the fact that the academy lowers the requirements to get on the job. The job lowers the requirements, and even the treatment in the academy is a lot softer than it used to be in the past, and that's to the detriment of these young guys, because it doesn't prepare them for that harsh reality that they're facing outside. And in a lot of ways, it's even harder now outside than it was when we were cops, because at least back then they had more fear of police. Now they obviously don't. If you're robbing a cop, a uniform armed cop, you're robbing, right? So it's a generational problem, and it's a generational problem that's been compounded by the diminished standards that the job has for them in training and in the academy in general.
Tracy Williams wants to go back on the Central Park 5. The wilding was disproved when the actual criminal confessed his crime, proving the accused man innocent. So there was a huge problem with wilding in Central Park and throughout all of New York City at that time. And you could ask any New York City residents, particularly Black residents of Harlem, what those men were involved in that were ultimately found innocent on. I'm not going to go and talk about the Central Park 5, but the fact that type of behavior was happening throughout New York City, that is a fact. What happened that particular night, I wasn't there. I didn't investigate it, but everything I heard, I don't think that they deserve millions or anything else. I watched those confessions as well, and I didn't see anything wrong with what happened. But now, hey, he's in charge of the public safety chair, one of them, right? So one of them's the public safety chair, Yusef Salam, public safety chair for New York City Council. So yeah, another thing with the phone, I still till today, if I'm walking in the city, or I'm in the store, or I'm anywhere, I put my phone on speaker. I stop. If I pick it up, more than likely I don't pick it up. But if I pick it up because I have to take that call, or I have a second to have it, I put my back to a wall. I'm on the phone and I'm looking at everything that's happened. And then I go about to my business. I'm like, yo, let me call you back. I can't talk right now, but whatever, blah, 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 whatever it is, whatever I got to say quick, and then I'm out. I'm not having a long-winded 30-minute conversation while I'm walking around. I'm not doing it. And however you do it, whether you're doing it on speaker or not, it's just not smart. It's not smart tactics, especially at 4:00 in the morning. And again, like you said, Marlon, we used to say like 2:00 in the morning is the bewitching hour. Like anything past 2:00 in the morning, you're up to no good. I don't care who you are. You're either going to work or you're up to no good. If you're out at 2:00 in the morning, you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. Right. And so you see two dudes with masks on at 4:00 in the morning, and you're just like going to continue about your conversation, and they're walking towards you at a fast pace. Not a good look. Not a good look at all. So yeah, anything else on this before we get off this?
Yeah. No, I think we covered it well. And again, for you guys listening and in the precincts, like we said, you see a young guy out there who needs to, get focused again. You do your best to let him know, hey, bro, you gotta, get your wits about you, because if we don't help each other, we've pointed out numerous times the inefficiencies of this job and the problems with training, but we can't sit around and wait for those to fix itself. If you see a young guy who's not doing what he should, just help him out, because you might be saving a life, or you might be protecting this kid from getting hurt in the future. So yeah, I think we covered it well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And people will be mad. Oh, you guys are messed up talking about this. Nobody should talk about this. I mean, like, honestly, I don't really care what any of you guys got to say. It needs to be talked about. Ignoring it's not helping anyone. We posted the video. I got a ton of messages. Take it down. Do this. Do that. Yeah, listen, we're not. So get over that. Why is there music with it? There's music for reasons for it. There was things that needed to be masked in there. That's why there's music with it. If anyone has a problem with it, let me know. That's it. I could care less. The bottom line is, it was wrong. It was horrible. The job tried to cover it up. The mayor's office tried to cover it up. They didn't want anyone to know exactly what happened. And the only reason this is probably even documented is because he is a cop. And then they weren't even going to let anybody know that this happened. Let other cops know what could happen. This is a huge failure tactically. This is a huge failure in training. And it's something that all cops should be made aware of, and to understand and to recognize that you need to be hypervigilant at all times, especially when you have a firearm on your hip. That could have easily been, we could have been talking totally different today. And then guess what? You wouldn't have been able to cover it up, tell everybody crime's down, everything's good, we're prepared for the summer. Again, summer's going to be what the summer always is, unless, and the other thing, for your reporters out there that continuous with, shootings are down and all this, do me a favor. Before you report shootings are down, see how many active shot spotters we have, as opposed to how many active shot spotters we had 3 years ago. Before you do that, because again, like I said, shootings aren't down, reported shootings are down. That is it. That is all that means. Shootings are not down. I was in New York City a couple of weeks ago. I heard more gunshots than I ever heard in my life. And I wasn't near any area that I should have heard gunshots, or that I was traditionally used to hearing gunshots. So don't tell me shootings are down. Shootings are not down. Crime is not down. It is heir apparent that crime is up in New York City. To everybody, to tourists, to lifelong New York City residents. This isn't just a perception of crime. This is the actual reality. The actual reality of crime. I think we just lost Marlon for a second. We'll wait for him to come back. Before we do, let's play the illustrious mayor while we await Marlon. Let's see what Eric Adams had to say yesterday about George Floyd.
I want to just really reflect on the loss of our brother, George Floyd, 5 years ago. This is the anniversary of his death. Many of you know I spent my life fighting against any form of police abuse or misconduct, not only here in New York City, but across the entire nation. Going back almost 50 years ago, testifying here in the city with Reverend Herbert Daughtry and others when Congressman Conyers brought a congressional delegation here, and then speaking and testifying in federal court to the Floyd versus New York case in the abuse of stop and frisk that was happening in the city. This is my life work and my life legacy. And so to the family members and countless number of individuals who have to deal with or dealt with police abuse, this is a moment of reflection. George's death changed the conversation forever in our country. And I wanted to just say to his family, our hearts are with you. And our hearts are with all those who are victims of police abuse and victims of crimes. We believe no innocent person should be the victim of any form of abuse.
So there you go. There is the mayor of New York City. He is talking about George Floyd 5 years later. Where was New York City Mayor Eric Adams 5 years ago? I'll tell you where he was. He was on Hot 97 saying that he wanted to defund the police by $600 million to $1 billion, that he was going to remove police officers from policing protests and policing details, and he was going to lower the overall headcount of the NYPD. Why was he going to do that? Because in Minneapolis, George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. Now, we could argue that Chauvin wasn't empathetic. He should have showed help. We actually recently did an episode. Me and Marlon recently just did an episode on it where, we talked about the optics of it, but does someone need to go to jail over optics? Again, Eric Adams points to the systemic abuses of police. He points to racism as a reason for this, with absolutely no evidence that race had anything to do with George Floyd's death. Marlon, your mic is super high. So, he points to all of this, and this is his life work. What his life work is, I have no idea. I don't know what he means by that. His life work is all over the place. His life work was, let me bolster my name by telling everyone that the New York City Police Department is systemically racist and hates black people, and all of their policies are done improperly. And then when he became the mayor, he multiplied all of the failures of the New York City Police Department that he spoke out against, and his police actually statistically perform way worse than Rudy Giuliani's police department, who that's how he made a name for himself, right? Or Mike Bloomberg's police department. That's how he made a name for himself, demonizing those administrations' work, the administrations that changed New York City from a city of crime to the actual safest big city in the world, not like where it is today, where we're on a downward slide that we're going to continue on. So that was Eric Adams' speech. We just talked about Eric Adams' speech, Maul. What'd you think about that? On the anniversary of George Floyd's death?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, John?
I hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. I have a lot of noise coming outside the window, so I just switched to a different location. If the noise calms down, I'll go back to my computer, and so you'll get a better picture and sound from me. But yeah, I think it was shameful, John. We talked about this on Friday, 2 weeks ago. How much propaganda and lies were involved in Floyd, and how much the truth was withheld from us, and the fact that Eric Adams does this and helps to perpetuate a lot of those lies again is absolutely shameful, especially as it comes in the wake of this officer getting injured. And as we said before, a lot of the inaction of these young cops is because they're afraid of the repercussions that may happen, the legal. They're afraid of the DA's office, and they're afraid that they're going to get jammed up for taking action as a cop. And unfortunately, that's something that's come in the wake of George Floyd. And we've talked about how the laws that have been put into place kind of hamstring cops, and it prevents them from properly doing their job. And and what we believe is it takes their mentality out the game. They're afraid of being a cop. So it's shameful that as we see this cop getting injured, and he's now in the hospital with like a broken eye socket, including a broken cheekbone. We see that Eric Adams is talking about this and helping to perpetuate this myth, that perpetuate those lies of Floyd, and helping to again create that atmosphere of that atmosphere and mentality of cops being afraid to be cops again. I just can't understand how a mayor who purports to be a security-minded mayor is pushing this social justice nonsense. I mean, I thought you're a pro-police mayor, but again, this also speaks of why I think supporting Eric Adams is a terrible mistake for the Trump administration. And this is the same thing that Trump has spoken out about for the last 4 years, and here it is. He dropped the Adams case, and Adams is clearly the Trump candidate. So it's shameful. It's shameful. And he I think he shouldn't have done that.
No, I thought it was absolutely disgusting, dude. Honestly. And so, so now, it's time for election season. Adams needs to fundraise, so he starts this anti-Semitic task force or whatever in New York City. And the assistant to the DOJ head of the Civil Rights Division, Harmeet Dillon, Leo Terrell, is now coming to New York City to talk with Eric Adams. He's meeting with him this week to talk about his anti-Semitic task force and what we could do as a nation. So the Trump administration is going to learn from Eric Adams what to do to fight anti-Semitism. Maybe they should bring Farrakhan too to talk about what they should do to eliminate anti-Semitism. That was Eric Adams' mentor. See like what the conversation was that Farrakhan was having about the Jewish community while Eric Adams was bodyguarding for him. Why don't we do that? Why don't we look at that, Leo or Harmeet Dillon? So talking about the Trump administration, let's get into that for a little bit. So Harmeet Dillon, the person who's in charge of the Civil Rights Division, in the federal government, these are the people that are responsible to protect your civil rights, and your First Amendment speech doesn't seem to really like free speech too much. So this happens yesterday. So Harmeet Dillon, there's been a concerted effort by this Justice Department to deny the harms that were done during COVID, particularly in New York City. They're talking about it everywhere else. They're talking about DEI, DEI, excuse me. It is really DIE, but how DEI has affected law enforcement, how law enforcement, particularly white Christian males, have been targeted in law enforcement. But yet they will not talk about where it happens in New York City because there is a concerned effort from Trump's administration to get Eric Adams elected. So they're not making any moves as related to New York City. And it's glaringly obvious. I mean, I have the only lawsuit in the country against DEI and policing. I have the only lawsuit in the country that has actual provable evidence of how they illegally denied religious exemptions and the racism and the religious discrimination that was used in order to do it. It's the only lawsuit, but yet the Trump administration is not looking at it. None of the police organizations are looking at it, but yet they're talking about all of the great things they're doing everywhere else except in New York City, the place that all of these things happen the worst. Right? And as goes New York City, so goes the country. So Harmeet Dillon yesterday, it's Sunday morning on a holiday weekend. And already my deputies and I have exchanged ideas about a half a dozen potential court filings and lawsuits to protect America's civil rights. The Justice Department never rests, although I have been known to take calls while knitting. This appears more like a social media influencer than the head of the United States Civil Rights Justice Division. So I said to her, until you start looking at the grave civil rights injustices that occurred in New York City during COVID, everything you are saying and doing is fluff. Muted, Harmeet Dillon responds. So potentially saying that she's not going to listen or do anything that I have to say. And I have to say, a lot of people that supposedly believe in free speech and are supposedly conservatives and supposedly is standing up for the rights were perfectly okay with the head of the DOJ muting my account. So, and to me, this is no difference than when Kaz Daughtry was using his personal account to speak about his official duties and thinking he could block people. It's completely illegal, and it's disgusting being done from the head of the Civil Rights Division. I mean, I don't care if Joe Biden's administration did this. I'd be crying about it, telling you how horrible it was, and so would all of you. But now, because it's Trump's people, I have people telling me, no, well, you were rude. I'm like, oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm not allowed to ask for redress from my government. I'm not allowed to speak. And if I'm rude, they have the right to censor me. I'm like, so you're a conservative. You support the Constitution. You support free speech. But if I'm considered rude or you don't like my opinion, then you believe censorship's okay because, hey, it's the Trump administration.
Yeah, it's that hypocrisy that it's not a good look for the administration. And we've talked before about the hollow gestures that we keep seeing from them, and how it's not conducive towards the midterms, and it doesn't keep the voting base motivated to come out and vote again in the midterms, in the coming midterms. And when I see these hollow gestures, I I saw them, and I was like a little, I was curious how much of these the Trump, how much of the administrators in the Trump administration have like like an entertainment background, or like a influencer background. So I did a little search, right, and it came back with 23. So there are 23 administrators in the Trump administration that all come from Fox News, or from the influencer space, and I keep thinking to myself, are these people were these people really the best people that we could find for these jobs? I mean, do these people understand that the position that they're in is not entertainment, and they're no longer like a personality on a major media network, that they're an official in government, and there's certain things that you can't do in government that you could do as a personality on media. You can block people all you want on Twitter, no matter how bad it looks, but as an administrator in government now, you can't do that, and it's just a bad look for not only. First, you can't do it because the Supreme Court has already made a decision on that. But secondly, it's a bad look for the transparency that was promised to the voting base. And if the voting base, if you keep making moves that makes the base feel that this is not what they voted for, and that seems a lot similar to the Democrats and the Biden administration, then it just doesn't motivate people to come out and vote again in the midterms. And so it's a bad look. And I hope she doesn't, going forward, that she doesn't shut down more criticism like that, because I just think it hurts Trump's agenda.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe it, because I'm like, even if I was dead wrong, I mean, you're the person that's supposed to protect the freedom of speech. So, I mean, like, you don't like my opinion. You don't agree with my opinion. Okay, I'm just going to mute you. What? So you don't support free speech then, right? Like, so First Amendment rights, you don't really support. So here's her talking about the issues faced with COVID mandates, right? Here's her take on it. And honestly, to me, it's kind of disturbing. It's a disturbing take when I listen to it. And, I'm like, I got to say what I see. The same perception management campaign that's being run in New York City is being run nationally. It's a control of perception, and it's misusing the media in a controlled media. You're hearing things being said, and there's things purposely being left out. So before we go any further into that, let's just play it. You hear what she has to say.
Over the last 5 years, one of the reasons why I've kind of kept abreast of you and your work with your law firm is you were challenging all sorts of medical mandates. There's a lot of people were dismissed from government, from private, from military. I mean, all sorts of places over time. How does the Civil Rights Division fit into these past scenarios, and are they different from each other?
So this is also a very complicated area. Believe it or not, guidance of our Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is sort of the main government agency that has the policy and enforcement of Title VII, which is our main federal civil rights employment law. they've had an opinion, the guidance that says that it's not illegal for employers to require vaccination as a condition of employment.
So just right there, I'm just going to stop right there. So employer can require vaccination as a condition of employment upon your hiring. They can't just ultimately turn in and say, all right, yeah, we're going to change your condition of employment and add it in. So that is upheld. It's not a policy. It's upheld in the law. An employer could mandate vaccination for employment, but not just change the condition of employment on you overnight. So I just want to highlight that one part.
I've actually had a conversation with our EEOC acting commissioner about that. I think that's wrong. And I think you may see that policy change, because to me, and basic freedom means that my employer can't tell me to put drugs into my body. That's kind of a big barrier. I think I should have control over that. And yet that's the policy.
So she's saying that more than likely the EEOC is going to change that and say that employers can't do that. I don't know that that is going to happen. Do I think that should happen? Absolutely, I do. So, and I would like to see that happen. So let's see. Let's hold our elected officials and their appointed managers accountable, right? She's saying that's going to happen. For those of you, there's one note where you should say, okay, we support that. Please let us know what's going on as a result, right? Let's go further.
Now, that policy runs up against another employment policy, which is employers are required to make accommodations of employees' good faith religious beliefs. But that's where you've seen a disconnect. Systematically, both government employers and private employers systematically ran roughshod over this basic, well-established premise of employment law. So there were thousands of employees around the country who asserted religious reasons why they didn't want to take the COVID vaccine. Pretty good reasons. I represented some in private practice in my nonprofit, also helped some people. There's 3 members of the North Carolina Symphony who are still fighting. Now, a lawyer might be able to get fired from a job and go get another job. Where's the North Carolina Symphony? Where's the cellist going to go? They have limited job opportunities, and because of their faith, I think 2 were Buddhist and 1 was another faith, they were fired and they lost their jobs because of that, because their faith said they shouldn't be required to take this drug to keep their jobs. So to the extent that people are bringing those cases to us as cases of religious discrimination, we'll be looking at those. But a lot of those cases have been litigated already. They're already in process due to the timing. A lot of that happened during the Biden administration. But I'm interested. No American should have.
So that's the point that I want to hone in on now. So a couple of things that happened in New York City. One, New York City is required to give you a religious accommodation. Unless, of course, you're in undue hardship. Meaning, you don't have to write a letter. You don't have to say anything. The minute you say, I'm seeking a religious accommodation, NYPD is required to give you that religious accommodation. Unless there's two factors. Unless you're in undue hardship. We came to find out through DCAS that masking and testing did not cause the NYPD an undue hardship, which we were all doing, so there was no undue hardship. So how did the NYPD deny, or other employees, how did they deny your religious exemptions? There was another thing that could possibly cause an undue hardship. They could transfer you to a non-public facing command. So I was in a non-public facing command. Marlon was in a non-public facing command, meaning we're not in patrol precincts acting with the public every day, right? So we were actually being accommodated 2 times, me and Marlon already. So what the NYPD did was change the religious accommodation procedure only for COVID. So what they said is you have to submit supporting documentation, which violates the law, because you're only allowed to ask for supporting documentation if you have a reason to believe that the person does not have a sincere religious belief. So basically, they basically said that everybody doesn't have a sincere religious belief. And then they played God and decided based upon a piece of paper without ever actually having a conversation with you or speaking to your supervisors, they decided if you were a faithful person or not. So how does this play here? So Harmeet Dillon sitting, if you listen to her words, what she said is that happened under the Biden administration. That already happened. Those cases have already been litigated, right? And we have these cases, and she picks two non-traditional mainstream religions, right? One was a Buddhist and one was this. Doesn't talk about who was disproportionately affected during this whole time. Christians, Catholics, disproportionately, overwhelmingly denied their faith. And what happened when they went to EEOC? EEOC refused to investigate the claims of religious discrimination. So now if you're sitting here and saying, well, that happened under the Biden administration, but we're just going to go forward and we're going to see that never happens again, I have a big problem with that. I have a huge problem with that. And I'm sitting there and saying, you're not doing anything. You're not going to change anything. You're just trying to get past that and change the conversation. And that's what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing because, no, EEOC refused to investigate valid claims of religious discrimination, and you're in charge. You should be going back and reinvestigating those cases. If you believe in what you're saying, you should be going back and reinvestigating them. Do you hear anything differently so far as to what she's saying?
No, I 100% agree. But I think it's even worse than that, actually, because here's the big elephant in the room, right? This the medical experiment was that. It was a medical experiment. It was never approved. So a lot of the points she brings up to me seems mute because it's unapproved, and you can't even put us in that position to needing religious accommodation or medical accommodation in the first place because this was never approved. It was under Emergency Usage Act, and the law states, I forget the exact title, but it states you cannot mandate an emergency usage drug. And we're glossing, she's clearly glossing over that, and that seems to be something that's never brought up in any of the discussions, and I think if that kind of invalidates any of these things, like I've told people before that if that point was brought up, it just totally invalidates any of these other discussions. We don't even have to get to these discussions because the stipulations already exist that state that you can't mandate this, and for a fact it was unapproved because in those same documents from the FDA that I got from the website, I sent it to the NYPD's own medical division, and that was the impetus for the conversation I had with Deputy Chief Surgeon Joseph Kufo. And again, when I had my conversation with him, he was angered that I brought up these facts, and he made a call to Chief Galati the next day, trying to get me in trouble for having the gall to even question that the department and that they may be wrong. But the facts are the facts, and the FDA in their own documents and in Pfizer's own fact sheet for the drug, it states this is under Emergency Usage Act. So I think we've said before that this administration seems to be trying to avoid doing the things they have to do because they are tough. But the problem here is that we voted for you because we thought we thought you were going to go in there and make those tough decisions that were going to right the wrongs of the past 4 years. So to see the department now, to see the administration now trying to skirt doing what they're supposed to is very disappointing. and her comments here are very disappointing, especially considering the role that she has in the administration.
Yeah, no, it's disturbing. Riacona, Puerto Rico says my agency had a deadline countdown clock running when you logged on. Same as NYPD did too. You had 7 days to comply. You have 6, and they didn't even give you business days either. They only gave you days, and I found that really bothered me because in city charter you're required to put like things as business days, not so working days, as opposed to, but they just did 7 days. So if you were on vacation, that didn't account for you. It was like those days are running if you weren't there. And I agree with you, Marlon. Yeah, 100%. So it wasn't even a valid mandate because the product wasn't there for it to be valid. 100% agree with you. I missed that, and 100% that is 100% true. The other thing is all of the stuff that happened. Like we had entire detective squads submit the same exemption. They only changed their names and their tax number, the same accommodation request, and some were accepted and others weren't. How? Based upon what? We've had ordained ministers who have their own churches be denied. We've had people who, whatever. They didn't even have to put an exemption in. You had people working from home, didn't have to put an exemption in. You had people that put an exemption in and there was never a decision made on them. You had people like myself where I put an exemption in, followed up by appeal, and they were both decided on immediately. And so like I had no time. Everyone's like, oh, you had time. I had a ton of time. I'm like, no, you had a ton of time. I didn't have a ton of time because I opened my mouth about the masking and testing, saying it makes no sense. Everybody should be masking and testing. If you're saying this works and everyone that took what you said they wouldn't get after they took it and they're still coming into work sick, then they should be masking and testing as well. Why does my life not matter? Why are you only concerned with their life and not mine? What happened to equal protection under the law? If you're saying that this works, they should have had to do it too. And so the EEOC just would not investigate any of those claims at all. And so here we go in the Trump administration. And to me, they're like, yeah, no, it was wrong. We're not going to do anything about it because that was the Biden. Most of those cases were litigated. By the way, were most of those cases litigated properly? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And again, a lot of the decisions that were made, courts wouldn't hear the evidence. They wouldn't accept the evidence, and they wouldn't enforce that New York City had to release the discovery, which proves that it was which proves that it was arbitrary, capricious, and discriminatory. So, so those court decisions are ridiculous. And if you're telling me you're making America great again by having influencers who are supposed to be in charge of protecting my free speech, cutting my tongue out because they don't agree with me, and I don't even think she doesn't agree with me. I just think she doesn't want to hear anyone to hear what I have to say, because 100% what they're doing is they're helping to get Eric Adams reelected. That's what they're doing, including the Trump Civil Rights DOJ. Because guess what? You're going to learn about his anti-Semitism task force, and like I said before, it should be called the Garner the Jewish Donation and Vote task force, because that's all it's about. It's going to do nothing to alleviate anti-Semitism in New York City. It's a complete dog and pony show, and everyone's okay with it. MAGA's okay with this. You can't criticize. I'm like, oh, but you support free speech though, right? You're a conservative. You want to make America great again. You're a Christian. You support free speech as long as you agree with it, right? Got it. Check. Gotcha. And everyone on this telling me, check my logic. I don't know what I'm talking about. I have no right to criticize her. And I haven't even had people in this own movement in New York City tell me I'm wrong. I'm like, I'm wrong, that I'm not allowed to, I have to placate to government. I can't tell my real opinion. I can't call out what I actually see respectfully. I'm not allowed to do that. So you don't support free speech either. But it's okay. It's different now because it's Trump. I don't see them moving different. I'm saying right now, I want them to reinvestigate what happened in New York City. And if you're not doing what happened in New York City, if you're not investigating it, you're full of crap. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. John, this was the biggest civil rights violation I I believe, in the last, say, 50 years. And I just don't see how America could be made great again if we don't correct that mistake. If we don't get past that, first of all, if we don't get past it, it can happen again, right? But if we don't get past it, how do we make America great again when we have that big stain on history? History is not going to forget this. We the entire incident was, to me, was like a bridge too far for America and the world to forget it. It's just we're just not going to forget it, and we cannot get past it until we correct it. Because there are too many issues that come up that are a byproduct of that incident. I mean, is government allowed to just do whatever they want in an emergency and to clearly break the law when the law already had stipulations for such emergencies? Is government allowed to just go ahead and break it again? Because let me tell you, the way politicians work is if they got away with it, they're going to do it again. It may not be from the same scamdemic, but it can very well be from another emergency where they're going to be the opportunists that they are and take advantage of that emergency to again violate the law. So in order to make America great again, and in order for us to move ahead of all of these things, we're gonna have to have those conversations, and the people who did wrong during those periods are gonna have to face the consequences. There's no way you can tell me that a candidate who says they want to make America great again should also be pushing Eric Adams as their choice. There's no way, because Eric Adams clearly made mistakes during that period, and he's yet to face any consequences for it. So you can't have it both ways, and you can't have it while also condemning the actions of other people like Andrew Cuomo, but excusing what Adams did. Again, like I said, there's going to be consequences for this the longer it goes on, and those consequences are going to be the midterm. And I'm personally scared of just how much Republicans may end up losing during that time. And the longer this goes on, the longer the administration tries to not do what they're supposed to do, is the harder it's going to get to actually when it comes time to actually take action. And again, when the midterms come along, how do you keep the voting base motivated? So,
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you, dude. Totally agree with you. It's like, you know what, you're not posting, you're gonna solve the migrant sanctuary city crisis, and you're not gonna hold the poster boy for sanctuary cities accountable, the one who spent 20 times more than all sanctuary cities combined. You're not gonna do that. You're gonna right the ills of the COVID mandates, but you're not going to do where it affected the city, the city that was affected the most, New York City. You're going to talk about the non-mainstream religions, but you're never going to bring up the thousands upon thousands of Christians that were legally denied religious rights and were religiously discriminated against. You're going to talk about the effects of DEI in law enforcement, but you're not going to look at the effects of DEI in the NYPD, where we dictate what happens nationally. We dictate what happens nationally in law enforcement. All of that started here. We had the first equity and inclusion department in the nation. Like, how are we doing that? We're the nation's largest police force, and you're going to sit there and say, I'm going to rewrite the ills of DEI, but I'm not going to look at the NYPD. And that's what's happening. We're going to clean up the corruption, but we're not going to look at the corruption inside of the NYPD. We're going to be transparent, but we're not going to look at the lack of transparency. And as a matter of fact, we're not going to be transparent either. Oh, and by the way, we support free speech. Just don't you dare criticize us.
Yeah. We're gonna Doge is going to go after wasteful spending in progressive policy, and not go after the $8 billion wasted on migrant funding in New York City, you know? And also, we're going to cut the Department of Education, which is fine, but we're going to kick it back to the states. And here it is, we have $8 billion that could easily be kicked back to states and have them, create educational policy on their own, and have the money to do so. But we're not going to go after that $8 billion, you know? It doesn't make any sense. You know, you can't have it both ways. You got to have principal policy in order to keep the base motivated. And we voted for you because we thought that you were the guy who's going to finally bring back principal policy and clear up all the waste and fraud in government. So
yeah. So we remember in 23, Pat Lynch had his retirement party. It was an article about it. Where do you have his retirement party? At Con Sofritos, whose restaurant? The guy who threatened me out of the blue, right? So, no-show job. A no-show job or fictitious employment is a paid position that ostensibly requires the holder to perform duties, but for which no work or even attendance is actually expended. The awarding of no-show jobs is a form of political or corporate corruption. Now, obviously, if you are a long-standing board member of any union, you're going to have accrued a lot of time, right? You're going to have accrued a lot of vacation time, maybe years. So this isn't what we're about to talk about isn't traditionally a no-show job, but it is. But it is. It's not traditionally. It's not that they're misusing the time. Well, in some form, they may be. But, it's came to our attention, numerous times that Pat Lynch's papers never dropped. They never dropped. As a matter of fact, when you look, meaning he was never fully retired. So Pat Lynch is not on See-Through New York City, but he is on 50A. And this is a recent search on 50A. 50A pulls data from all of the city's resources. So it shows Pat Lynch is a member of the 98th precinct, right? So he's burning his time, right? So he made $197,000 last year, right? So I was like, oh, that's weird. It's weird to see, who else is still on the job? Oh, the vice president of the PBA, the guy you hear in the beginning of the show, right? John Puglisi. They have him at the 9-4 precinct since January 98. He made $221,000 last year. That's weird. So he made more last year than Pat Lynch. So Puglisi's is on See-Through New York. Couldn't find Lynch. So his base pay is $105,000. $146. The same as Pat Lynch's. But yet last year, in the same rank, in the same position, John Puglisi made $220,942. Sounds like somebody did overtime to me. What are your thoughts on that? Burning your time, you step down. Do you think these guys are actually reporting to the 90th precinct or the 9-4 precinct at all? Or are they being carried somewhere and are being able to come in and do as they please?
yeah, I think that sounds like they're reporting to their sofa in the living room, John. Yeah, or their recliners they're reporting to. That's crazy because I've mentioned here before, but in order to come back on, they had told me that DCAS, they have to get permission from DCAS because DCAS has to allocate the budget for it. I mean, really? Think of that for a second. All the wasteful spending we hear that the job does, yeah? All the overtime cash for ask program. And now we're hearing about guys who are still on the payroll, who are probably reporting to their sofa in the living room while they're watching the football game and collecting overtime. And yet, in order to pull us back, the DCAS needs to give the job permission for the budget. It's just absurd, completely absurd. Yeah. And for all of you guys who are watching this and thinking that, hey, it's it's Pat Lynch. He's earned his given the benefit of the doubt, right? Well, guess what, guys? The city is busy looking into ways to expand congestion pricing. We've talked about it many times. Adams is all in on the MTA's congestion pricing for Manhattan, and you know, Kathy Hochul, they're all foaming at the mouth to put up cameras all over the city and to use it as a backdoor tax to raise funds for the city and the state because they are broke. Okay. So while you don't think this is a big deal, you'll probably think it is. You'll be concerned when you're paying more for your tolls to get to work, and you're paying more in your taxes. Meanwhile, you have guys like Lynch who are still feeding off the tet of government while sitting at home watching the latest football game. So is that what we support now? It's shameful. It's shameful, and it's that wasteful spending that New York City keeps doing while chastising the actual workers on the actual boots on the ground who happen to be getting a little more overtime. It's that same mentality why the job is pushing portal to portal to save pennies, while people like that are like abusing the system and getting like copious amounts of overtime and money that they really didn't earn. It's a complete waste.
Danny D23 says, saw the Weasel Puglisi at Cobra OT last year. Well, he was obviously doing OT somewhere, somewhere. I mean, what's the explanation? And it appears they're still on the job running their time. Have they done overtime this year? Are they held to the same overtime restraints as members of the NYPD? What happens if they're late? But my point in all of this is, every post we do, everything we do, we consistently hear, where's the PBA? Where's the PBA? Where's the PBA? Those two guys we just showed, they're the PBA. They're still running it. It's a shadow government. I mean, in my opinion, it's a complete shadow government. They rigged that election for Pat Hendry to win so they could still control the union. And that's exactly what's happened. And what had recently came out is like, the PBA celebrating these victories in the legislature, saying what they're doing for you, what they're actually doing for them. Right? Because I'm saying, well, you get so if you stay 25 years of service now, you get a 5% increase. Maybe we're traditionally not seeing people do 25 anymore, seeing them run out the door at 20. 30 years of service, you're getting a 10% increase. And then I'm like saying, well, no one's getting to that. Nobody wants to stay at the current state of the job. No one's even getting to 25. Right? The new guys don't even want to get to 25. That's why they moved the tier 3 pension back to 20, right? Because you can't get guys to stay to the 25. So I'm like, this isn't alleviating anything. And then at 35 years of service, you get a 15% increase in your highest pay grade. Huge. And I'm like, who benefits from that? And I said it, the union members, because they're not doing the job you have to do. They're sitting around getting old and fat with their take-home cars and not doing anything. And now these guys are going to collect all of that. So they're still working directly for themselves. And then you look at some of the other pension things that come in. Eliminate pension reduction at age 62. Keep your full retirement benefit intact. Weird. Who's getting that age? Wow, wonder. Mandatory retirement age raised to 65. Currently forced out at 63. This bill proposes letting you stay till 65. More time on the job equals more pension growth and planning. Who is benefiting from that other than these two guys? Now, I remember a long time ago, there was a lawsuit with a group of people who were nearing 62 years of age who they were fighting to stay on the job. They were saying, I could still do this job until I'm 65. I'm in better shape than these younger guys that are coming on. But there was one lieutenant and there was a lot of 3-star chiefs that wanted to stay on, and 2 stars and 1 stars that wanted to stay on until they were 65. They sued and they lost. They weren't able to get on. But those people no longer exist. There's no one saying I want to stay till I'm 65 anymore and continue to go out in the streets of New York City every day. No. Who is that for? They're working directly for themselves. I mean, and shame on all of you for not seeing that you're completely gaslit. Shame on you.
Yeah. You know, the shades of I'm getting shades of the fourth turning here with that whole generational fight, you know. And I said it before, but I think like the young guys, you tier 3 guys who are on the job, you're never gonna have people at the unions who care about you unless they're you, you know, and not this older generation. So if you're watching this and you're frustrated with the way things are going, it's time for you to time for you to look towards a position in the unions yourself, because obviously these guys, the older generation that are there seems to be working on behalf of themselves and not for the future. And you are the future, because like we said, like the tier 2 guys, where I think we're coming up on the last 2 classes now. So, well, I mean, there are going to be 1 or 2 guys still left, but the majority of tier 2 is going to be whittled down. So it's going to be your job now. And I forgot the exact number that I said before, and I haven't looked at it in a while, but I think it's at least 60% of the job is now the new guys. So like we said, it's going to be your job soon. And you need people in the unions and at these leadership positions who come from your generation now, because we have to look at the future of this job and not look to continue enriching the guys who should be walking out the door now. You know, it's not a healthy position for the job to be in, and it's not as a resident of the city myself, like it infuriates me, because they're busy raising the tolls and the taxes and trying to find ways to get even more money from us, while people like this aren't pulling their weight, and they're looking to crush you guys for that little bit of overtime that you got, whereas these guys are earning that amount of money sitting home again watching a football game. So it's a bad position for the job to be in at all.
Yeah, so I think moral of the story: crime's not down in New York City. Even cops are not safe. So I think the title summed it up. I don't even think we needed to do that episode. We could have just played that video with the headline, and that would have just nailed it all home today. Anything else you want to talk about, or any other points you want to make before we get out of here?
No. But it's funny. Like, these things always come to me when the show is over, you know. But I think we did a good job in covering all the bases. Again, we said the young guys need to get your head in the game. You know, as the summer's coming, the sun's coming. The sun's out, guns out. You know, and not the type of guns you get in the gym. You know, so you better get your head in the game and wake up and realize this isn't like, you're not LARPing being a cop out there. You're a cop. You got a gun on you, and everything is a gun run because you have the firearm. You bring the firearm, and you could easily be incapacitated, and that could be used on you. And I think the poor response of everyone, including the unions, it needs to be addressed by you young guys, by getting leadership positions in the unions and taking over, because clearly the people that are there doesn't seem to me like they have your best interest at heart anymore.
Yeah, no. And DiMaggio says, good luck running against the union incumbents. In my department, anyone who challenged the union leadership was ordered to the crooked department shrinks by management. Read about Montero versus City of Yonkers. So listen, the same thing happened in the NYPD. We basically brought it live on the show, how the PBA election was rigged. We had PBA candidates on here, and they were basically held off the ballot. It was rigged. They were illegally moved off the ballot to control an $80 million budget. To me, it was racketeering in its truest form, and it should have been people should have went to jail over it, in my opinion. But yeah, 100%. And then the job will target you as a result with the connections they have. 100% agree with you. But I also think it's important for young guys to come together with a plan. And the same way those older guys did, they came together, they formed a coalition, and they took over the union. It could be done. Is it going to be done without a fight? No, it's absolutely going to be done with a fight. But if you want to take over your position, you want to make things better, there's only one way to do it, and you got to put your head down and get in the fight. So,
And sorry, John, if I may, also,
Sure.
The what happened in with the medical experiment should be a wake up call. I mean, regardless of how you feel about the experiment, if you were pro it or whatever, it doesn't matter. What you have to do is look at the legal aspect of it. The fact that the job was able to break civil rights and labor law and get away with it should be a wake up call for you, because it may not be that today, but tomorrow it may not. This may not be your concern today, but tomorrow it's going to be something else that they're going to use to break civil rights and labor laws. You can't just I know a lot of you just want to sit down and do your job and be left alone, because I certainly did. But I realized at a certain point that it's coming for you, So it's not something that you can say, I don't want to get in a fight and the job is going to get after me. The problem is the job is coming after you anyway. Okay, so you might as well get in a fight now and speak up for yourself in what's going on. Because if you don't, and you just sit there and you think you could go on and keep doing your job, it's going to be your turn in the future. Okay, so you either get in this fight now or wait until you're going to be pushed out like us, and you're going to be saying, I wish I had done more when I was there. So
100%. And just the last thing, a lot of people are messaging me saying, Puglisi gets full night diff. That's how he got to 220. It's like, well, if he got full night diff and Lynch got full night diff, then they should have had the same salary, right? But I'm sitting here, and a point that I'm just thinking about is only while you're a union official will you get full night diff, right? Like you have to be a union, you have to be a union paying, you have to be part of the union. They're no longer those union heads. So if they're burning, like once you start burning your time, you come off that full night diff, because they get the full night diff while they're actively in the union as to compensate for the no overtime, right? But once you retire, or now you're burning that time, you fall out of that midnight slot. Like, who authorized that? That's a misuse of taxpayers' funds, and again, it's overlooked like everything else in this department. And or like, Frankie Palagucci says, they came for him, the random drug test, the random drug test. Yeah. And IMP Franco says, John, they're good guys, Mo. Yeah, they're great guys. They're great guys. I'm sure I'll get a lot of fake handles coming on threatening us the next couple of days, but that's okay. That's okay.
Oh yeah. I'm sure the union guys are like foaming right now.
Yeah. The truth comes out eventually. Truth comes out eventually. Yeah, it didn't work the first time. Ain't gonna work the second time either. So, so like, and it, to me, it's just wrong. And it's disgusting to me. Tabitha says that everybody that was fired should be restored and compensated. It's truly disgusting to me that like Marlon Bethel's sitting here with us and not at work. You could say what you want about me. Oh, John, you ran away, you didn't fight it, you retired, whatever. I don't care. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about Marlon. It's, do I think I was harmed? Was I basically terminated? Yeah, it was. But, but the fact is Marlon was actually terminated. His gun was taken, his shield was taken. He did nothing wrong. He told the truth. He held in integrity. And it's like, that's the people that you should want in the police department. That's right, Jessica. Isn't that the type of people you should want? The people that you're going to throw into something that's wrong and illegal, and they're going to stand up and they're going to hold on in integrity and truth. Isn't that the person that you want to be a cop? Or do you want the person that just keeps their head down, doesn't do anything, doesn't see two masked men charging at them, didn't see the woman get robbed, didn't see anything? Is that the person you want? Oh, the whole precinct's dealing drugs and they didn't see anything. There's an on-duty booty scandal happening. Nobody's saying a word. People are partaking on it. There's people doing shakedowns of clubs. Those are the people that are being rewarded currently in the NYPD. Those are the people, like if Marlon would have did that, he would be a first grader right now.
Yeah. Like I said, you just can't ignore this and think that it's not going to come for you at a certain point, because it will. And I see your comments, Juju. The thing is, first of all, John still has property in New York, and he still has family in New York. Okay, and I still live in New York, and I have family in New York, and I have property in New York. So and even if we go somewhere else in the country, what are we supposed to ignore the state that New York City is in? Should I, if my neighborhood is fine, is it okay that all the other neighborhoods around my neighborhood gets burnt down? It's not, okay? What kind of future you want for your country if this is okay? Come on. You got to wake up and realize that when something is wrong, you got to call it out, and we got to get past it. Otherwise, what kind of America you're going to live in? The entire civil rights movement was fighting against things like this. Okay, and now is it okay? What now? Now the civil rights movement isn't a. I mean, do we negate all of that? Is that not a big deal in American history now? So your comments, I just don't understand. I know you love the job, but come on, this is the future of the country we're talking about here.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, people. Like I said, Lynch and Puglisi were on the job a long time. I'm sure they accrued all of the time that they're burning. But to me, you're allowing them to come in for overtime. And like I said, does anyone know they're even coming in for overtime? What kind of overtime? And, while the job's falling apart, and they're continuing to advocate solely for themselves and sweeten their pensions, and that's all I'm pointing out is that it's a self-driven mission. I'm not saying what they're doing is illegal. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying what they're doing is doing what they've always done. Fulfill their own pockets, self-fulfilling people, and they're not concerned with the rank and file. They're not concerned with their members the same way your local politician isn't concerned with its constituents. They're politicians. They've always been, and they're continuing to be even in retirement. And it appears to me that they still run the PBA. I don't. It's not lost on me that two of the main bills that are being presented, and one of them that passed, influences their pensions directly. It's not being lost on me. I'm not, and that's why, we sit there and we talk about it constantly, that people are not leaving for more money, but yet the unions consistently say people are leaving for more money. And who's benefiting from these bills that are getting passed? Not the people that are leaving because they're not staying. They are, right? And they still haven't left. So it's absolutely ridiculous, So that's all I was getting at with that, is that there's no show jobs in the continuing on in the police department. Is it in traditional sense of the word where they're not getting paid? No, it's there. There's a shadow government running your PBA. That's all I'm telling you.
Yeah. Whatever happened to the responsibility of the unions to help make sure the job stays in like a great condition, even when we all move on to something else, it's completely irresponsible.
Well, they don't have to, because we're doing it for free and they're making all the money, so they don't have to address any of the issues. Same thing would happen this weekend, right? Did the union say a word about anything? No, we didn't. And did it get corrected? Yeah, it did. But they don't have to, because we're the idiots. We're doing it for free while they're getting rich, So, but it's all right. It's all right. I would never want, it's crazy. So, all right, brother. All right, listen, appreciate it. Good day. Tomorrow, Sal Greco show will be on 1305. I got Phil Wong, Democratic City Councilman. He's running for Bob Holden's seat. Bob Holden is a moderate Democrat inside of New York City. I think the only common sense Democrat in New York City Council. Bob Holden is term limited out. He cannot run again. So we'll be interviewing Phil Wong, pretty interesting character. Also, Bob Holden style, very moderate, pro supporter of police. So we're excited to have him on tomorrow. We'll have him on. Wednesday, we're going to have the founder of the Donald J. Trump Club come on. Executive Perspective will be on at 5:05 p.m. that time. So we got a lot of shows lined up for you coming at you. And, we're excited to have everybody. So thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning. And, Marlon, any last thing you want to say before we get out of here?
No. Just happy Memorial Day. And again, a shout out to the veterans who've served. And, just thank you for your service and, what you've done to make sure freedom remains, again, free.
Yeah. No, so I agree totally. Have a happy, safe Memorial Day, and definitely honor the lives of the men and women who lost their lives so that we're able to enjoy our freedoms in this country and protected these founding principles that we're allowed to redress our government, that we're allowed to use our freedom of speech. And appreciate all you guys. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Find us Unfiltered. We'll be back at you live 8:05.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.